I was grabbing coffee with a senior developer last week, someone who spent 15 years mastering the dark arts of systems architecture. He was leaning over his laptop, eyes tracing a labyrinth of C++ as if he were deciphering an ancient scroll. He looked exhausted, yet there was this palpable pride in his voice as he explained how he'd spent the last 3 days hand-tuning a memory allocation bug. To him, this was the peak of human craftsmanship. He called it the soul of the machine. He looked at me and said, AI can't do this. It doesn't understand the nuance. It doesn't have the grit. He felt secure, even superior in his role as a meticulous translator of human logic. He saw himself as a master builder. But then I showed him a project a friend of mine had spun up over the weekend. It wasn't a hand-tuned script. It was a self-evolving system of 12 local AI agents orchestrated by a single GPU stack in a home closet that had generated, tested, and deployed a more efficient version of his entire architecture in roughly 20 minutes. The look on his face shifted instantly. That pride didn't just vanish. It curdled into a visible physical panic. He started talking about ethics and job safety, complaining that this was cheating and that the world was losing its standard of quality. In that one moment, I saw the transition happen in real time. The realization that his decade of expertise wasn't a fortress, it was a digital sweatshop. He wasn't a master builder, he was a digital serf, meticulously carving bricks by hand while the age of the cathedral building commanders had already begun. That shift from craftsman to obsolete laborer is the silent earthquake happening in tech right now. It raises a question that most are too terrified to answer. Are you actually a programmer, or are you just the bootloader for something that doesn't need you anymore?
Wow. That is a brutal opening.
It felt brutal watching it happen.
You can almost smell the stale coffee and the fear in that room. But I think you hit on something there that we really, we need to sit with for a minute. That word you used, curdled, the pride, curdling into panic. That isn't just one guy. I mean, that is the collective psychological state of an entire industry right now.
It really felt like watching a glitch in the Matrix. He was so sure of his value, He thought the pain he endured, the 3 days of debugging, was what gave the work its meaning. And then to see it all done in 20 minutes without a single drop of human sweat. I mean, it just broke his worldview.
Because his worldview was built on, the labor theory of value applied to code.
Exactly.
He thought, I suffer, therefore I am valuable. But the universe, and certainly the market, it just doesn't care about your suffering. It cares about the output. And what we're witnessing is almost like a speciation event. We are moving from homo faber, man the maker, the guy physically moving the bits around, to something else.
The commander.
The commander, exactly. The difference between laying bricks and designing the cathedral, except now the cathedral builds itself once you give the order. But here's the thing, and this is really what we're going to unpack today. This transition isn't free, and it's definitely not guaranteed. There are forces actively trying to stop you from becoming that commander.
We aren't just talking about cool tech. We are talking about a war for the right to use that tech.
A war for sovereignty.
Yeah, I've got a stack of research here that paints a pretty disturbing picture. We're going to look at what's being called the regulatory moat, which is aimed at stopping independent innovation.
Okay.
Then we'll get into the sovereign response from let's call them the underground coding bunkers. And this is where my brain started to hurt when I was prepping for this. We get into the physics of it all. The thermodynamics of why we are even building these things in the first place.
It's a hierarchy. It starts with legal codes, moves to software codes, and it ends with the laws of physics.
So let's start on the ground floor. The legal code. The obstacle. I was reading a thread about his situation, and it just really stuck with me because it's so contrary to the whole tech utopia narrative we usually hear.
Yes.
So Elias is a developer, lives in a major tech hub. He's not a big shot, just a guy with a vision. He spent months, literal months, optimizing a decentralized AI model.
Okay.
And his goal was super specific. He wanted to give small-scale farmers real-time soil analytics, basically using AI to tell a farmer, hey, your nitrogen levels are off in the south acre, fix it now, without them needing a PhD or $1 million contract with some big ag tech firm.
Incredible. I mean, that's exactly what we want AI to do, right? Democratize expertise.
So he gets the model working, it's lean, it's efficient, but just as he's ready to deploy it to the public, he just hits a wall.
Technical problem.
Not a technical wall, a bureaucratic one. He runs face first into AI safety compliance protocols.
The two friendliest words in the English language that somehow always mean stop what you're doing.
Right. It's a total red light.
Yeah.
Suddenly, he's staring at this labyrinth of paperwork. To deploy his model legally, he needs to conduct safety audits. He needs red teaming certifications. He needs to prove his model won't, I don't know, convince a tractor to overthrow the government.
And these things are not cheap.
These audits cost thousands, maybe tens of thousands of dollars. They require legal teams he just doesn't have.
So he's just stuck in limbo.
He's worse than stuck. He's stuck in a trap because while he's waiting for a permit that never comes, I mean, the backlog is infinite. Guess what happens?
Yes. One of the big guys launches something similar.
A massive tech monopoly, one of the giants, sitting on the very regulatory board that wrote these rules, launches a tool. And it's nearly identical to what Elias built. But they have the safety certificate. They have this stamp of approval. And why?
Because they have an army of lawyers, and they have the H100 clusters to run the required safety checks at scale.
To Elias, this didn't feel like consumer protection. He said it felt like a digital enclosure movement. Like he was a peasant in the 17th century watching the lords fence off the common grazing land.
We call this digital feudalism. And I want to be very precise here, because it's easy to sound like a conspiracy theorist when you talk about this stuff, but the documentation is right there in the open.
That's what I want to get into, because on the surface, AI safety sounds objectively good. I don't want unsafe AI. I don't want a model teaching people how to build bioweapons. So is Elias just collateral damage in a necessary war for safety, or is the safety the weapon?
In this context, the safety is the weapon. I mean, just look at the incentives. If you are a Microsoft or a Google or an OpenAI, you have a massive lead. You have the compute. You have the data. What is the one thing that threatens your position?
Two guys in a garage who come up with something smarter and cheaper.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Asymmetric competition. So how do you stop the guys in the garage?
Yeah.
You can't outcode them forever. Open source is moving way too fast for that.
So you outregulate them.
You outregulate them. You create a regulatory moat. You set the bar for compliance so incredibly high that only a company with like $1 billion in revenue can even hope to clear it.
So the regulation acts as a filter. It filters out the competition, not the actual danger.
And the research papers we looked at, they identify two main mechanisms for how these large companies manipulate this landscape. They call them mechanisms of avoidance and mechanisms of change.
Yeah, mechanisms of avoidance. That sounds like tax evasion, but for data.
It's very similar in spirit.
Yeah.
Avoidance is all about technical structuring. It's using technology to ensure that the laws just don't apply to you while they still apply to everyone else.
Okay, give me an example.
Take federated learning.
Okay, I've heard the term, but pretend I'm not a machine learning engineer. What is federated learning, just in simple terms?
Right, so imagine you want to learn how to cook the best pasta sauce in the world. The traditional way centralized learning is that everyone in the city brings their tomatoes and their garlic to your massive central kitchen.
Right. I own the kitchen. I hold all the ingredients.
And if the health inspector comes, they inspect your kitchen because you're holding the raw goods.
Makes sense.
Now, federated learning is different. Instead of bringing the ingredients to you, you send a mini chef, a little piece of software, to everyone's house. That chef goes into their kitchen, learns from their ingredients, updates its own internal recipe book, and this comes back to you.
So the tomatoes never leave the user's house.
The tomatoes never leave the house. You never touched the raw data.
So if the health inspector, the regulator, comes to me and says, hey, show me the data you're holding, we need to check for privacy violations, I can just say,
I don't have any data. I just have a recipe.
it's clever.
And it's always touted as a privacy feature, which, to be fair, it is. It's great for user privacy, but legally, it allows these massive companies to extract the value of the data, the intelligence, without taking on the liability of the data.
Okay.
They get to operate outside the scope of laws like GDPR because they aren't technically processing personal data in their central server. Meanwhile, Elias, who might need to collect data directly to train his small model because he can't afford a complex federated infrastructure, he gets hammered by the full force of the law.
So the big guys get a fair data shelter and the little guys get a compliance audit.
And that brings us to the second mechanism, mechanisms of change. This one is even more insidious, I think. This is where they don't just avoid the law, they actively shape it to benefit themselves.
This is the lobbying part, right?
It's lobbying 2.0. The term they use is regulatory backburning.
I love that term, backburning, like fighting a forest fire with a controlled fire.
Precisely. If a massive, uncontrolled fire is coming, and that's, say, the government threatening to break up big tech or impose strict liability, you start a smaller, controlled fire ahead of it to burn up all the fuel.
So the controlled fire is self-regulation.
Yes. They go out and set up these AI safety institutes. They release open source models, but with really restrictive licenses. They fund red teaming events where they pay hackers to find bugs. They make a huge public show of being responsible.
And they go to the government and say, look at us, we're already doing so much.
Exactly. They say, the science of AI safety is nascent. It's way too early for you to write strict laws. You'll stifle innovation. Just let us handle it.
And the government buys it.
Well, the government is terrified of breaking the economy. So they say, okay, you guys seem to know what you're doing. We'll let you set the voluntary standards.
And those voluntary standards just so happen to be impossible for a startup to meet.
Funny how that works out, isn't it? And the most effective tool they use for this is the compute threshold.
Okay, I saw this number in the notes. 10 to the 26th operations. It sounds like something from a sci-fi novel.
It's the magic number. The Biden executive order, the EU AI Act, they all circle around this concept. If a model requires more than 10 to the 26th floating point operations, or FLOPS, to train, it is automatically classified as a dual-use foundation model with systemic risks.
10 to the 26th. Can you put that in perspective for me?
It's astronomical. I mean,
Yeah.
to train a model at that scale, you need thousands, maybe tens of thousands of NVIDIA H100 GPUs running for months on end.
Okay, pause on H100. I see this term everywhere. It's like the holy grail of tech right now. What is it physically? Is it just a really good graphics card? Can I put one in my gaming PC?
You absolutely cannot. An NVIDIA H100 is not a graphics card for playing Call of Duty. Think of it as a brick of pure silicon, about the size of a paperback book, that costs anywhere from $25,000 to $40,000 each.
$40,000 for one.
And it draws 700 watts of power. It runs so hot, you need industrial-grade cooling. Duration, production.
So when we talk about a cluster, we're talking about a warehouse full of these $40,000 bricks, just screaming with fans, sucking down enough electricity to power a small city.
That is exactly what we're talking about. That's the barrier. By setting the regulation at 10 to the 26th, the regulators are effectively saying, if you are big enough to own a billion-dollar supercomputer, you are in the club. We will watch you, but you are a player.
And if you're not?
If you are smaller than that, you are a toy. And if you try to innovate in a way that might be dangerous without that hardware, we will shut you down.
It just completely validates Elias's paranoia. It creates a moat where only the people with the H100s can play the real game.
And it creates a dependency. If you want to build a world-class app, you have to rent their compute, you have to use their APIs, you become a serf on their digital land.
Which is a perfect segue, because not everyone is willing to be a serf. There's a rebellion brewing, and it's not happening in the boardrooms, it's happening in the basement.
Sovereign movement.
Exactly. I want to introduce another character here, Marcus. This story came from a private Discord server I lurk in. Marcus is a veteran coder, been in the game 20 years. He calls himself a code janitor.
I think a lot of developers feel that way.
Yeah, he was just burned out. Constantly fixing syntax errors, managing dependencies, dealing with JIRA tickets. The joy was gone. It was just manual labor. So he decided to go sovereign.
Defined as what exactly?
He built a local stack. He dropped about $15,000, his life savings, on a home rig. Dual 4090s, massive RAM, the works. And he set up a swarm of local large language model agents. He wasn't using OpenAI. He wasn't using the cloud. He was completely offline.
So no API fees, no surveillance.
And no filters.
Yes.
He bypassed the censorship. He became a commander. He told me that he would issue a high-level architectural intent like, build me a microservice that scrapes this data, formats it, and stores it in a vector database. And his swarm would just do it.
You would just build it.
They would write the code, test the code, fix the errors, and present him with the finished binary. He said he achieved in 3 days what used to take his 10-person team a month.
Oh, that's the 1000x productivity gain people talk about.
Yeah.
That is the power of the sovereign stack.
But he said something else that really struck me. He said, I felt like a god, but I also felt like a fugitive.
A fugitive.
Yeah, because what he was doing, bypassing the safety rails, running raw, uncensored models, is exactly what the diesels want to stop.
Decels, the decelerationist.
Right. The Sovereign Manifesto, and these guys literally have a manifesto, is explicitly anti-diesel. They view the AI safety bureaucrats, the people who are stopping Elias, as enemies of human progress.
So it's a culture war, really. But let's look at the tech for a second, because Marcus's setup is fascinating. Why is ownership so critical to him? Why not just use GPT-4? It's smarter than his local model, probably.
Oh, it is smarter, but it's lobotomized. If you rely on a centralized API, your capability is a revocable privilege. OpenAI can ban you, they can rate limit you, they can change the model overnight, and your entire code base breaks.
It's the difference between renting an apartment and owning a house. If you rent, the landlord can change the locks whenever they feel like it.
Or tell you that you can't cook meat in the kitchen because it's unsafe. Marcus ran into this exact thing. He'd asked the corporate AI to write a script for network penetration testing. He's a security guy, and the AI would say, "I'm sorry, I cannot assist with tasks that could be perceived as cyber attacks."
The ideological filter.
Exactly. It treated him like a child. His local swarm, it just said, "Yes, sir," and wrote the code. To the sovereign developer, that obedience is completely non-negotiable.
They call it manifest destiny.
You must own the means of production, which in this day and age means owning the weights.
Open weights. We should probably define that for people.
Yeah, clarify that. We talk about open source code all the time, but weights are a different beast.
Right. So think of an AI model like a brain. The structure of the brain, how the neurons are all connected, that's the architecture. You can publish that in a paper, no problem.
Okay.
But the weights are the actual strength of the connections between those neurons. It's the memory, it's the knowledge. If you have the architecture but not the weights, you just have an empty shell. You have a brain with amnesia.
So open weights means someone is releasing the fully trained brain.
It means you can download the brain to your hard drive and run it yourself. Right. Meta did this with Llama. It changed everything. It gave people like Marcus the ability to run near GPT level intelligence on their own metal.
But here is the catch, and I want to push back on the it's all magic idea. Marcus isn't just sitting back drinking pina coladas while the AI does all the work. The skill set has changed, but it hasn't disappeared.
In fact, I'd argue the skill set is harder now and requires more responsibility.
The senior developer in my opening story, the guy hand-tuning C++, he thought his value was his grit. He thought his value was his ability to suffer through all the complexity.
And that is the trap. In the sovereign era, the ultimate differentiator is not writing code. It is the judgment to evaluate it.
What does that mean?
Imagine you are a general. You have an army of 10,000 soldiers. You can order them to take that hill. They will do it instantly. But if you point to the wrong hill, you just lost the war 10,000 times faster.
The cost of a bad decision scales up massively.
Exactly. Marcus has an agent swarm generating code at 1,000 times human speed. If he doesn't understand systems design, if he doesn't understand kernel internals, he can't verify what the agents are doing. He can't look at the output and say, wait a minute, that's going to cause a race condition down the line.
So the agents can hallucinate bugs just as fast as they write perfect code.
Probably. The source material calls foundational knowledge the immune system. You need to know how the machine works deep down. The soul of the machine your friend talked about, not so you can build it by hand, but so you can stop your robot army from building a complete disaster.
So the transition is from programmer, the manual laborer, to technological sovereign, the architect.
A commander of GPU armies. It's a martial mindset, you know? Move fast and build things. Everything else is deceleration.
Let's picture Marcus's closet again. This isn't the cloud. This is a hot, noisy box sitting in his house.
It's a space heater that thinks.
A space heater that thinks. That's a perfect bridge, because this heat, it's not a bug. It's a feature of the universe.
Now we're getting into the deep water.
We've talked about the political fight. That's Elias versus the regulators. We've talked about the technical fight, Marcus versus the APIs. But there is a third group, the EEC crowd, the effective accelerationists. And they believe this is a thermodynamic fight.
This is where we go from the server closet to the fabric of reality itself.
Yeah. I want to introduce our third character, Sarah. She's a researcher I read about. And she's not worried about job safety. She's not even really worried about censorship. She's worried about the heat death of the universe.
That's a bit of a scope creep from debugging code.
Well, Sarah views her compute cluster's telemetry not as data, but as a battle line. She sees the scaling of AI and FOPS as a Promethean imperative. I read this interview with her where she said, and I'm quoting, "Stagnation is the only true existential risk."
Wow.
She believes we are building the nervous system for a Type I civilization, and if we stop, we are surrendering to entropy.
Sarah's perspective is intense, but it's grounded in very real physics, specifically the relationship between information and energy.
There's a principle mentioned in the papers, Landauer's bound.
Right. Rolf Landauer. He was a physicist at IBM. Back in 1961, he proved something that just blew everyone's mind. He proved that information is physical. Specifically, he proved that erasing information generates heat.
Hey, why erasing? I would think creating information takes energy.
Well, writing information can theoretically be done with zero energy if it's a reversible process. But erasing, Erasing is irreversible. Think about it like a messy room.
My room is always messy, so I can relate.
If you want to clean it, if you want to reset the state of the room to zero, you have to expend energy. You have to move things around. You sweat. You generate heat. A computer bit is exactly the same. To reset a bit from a 1 to a 0, you have to dump the entropy somewhere, and you dump it as heat.
So every time Marcus's GPU resets a calculation, it physically warms up the universe a tiny, tiny bit.
To compute is to physically interact with the thermodynamic state of the cosmos. The papers put it very simply. Computation is existence.
So Sarah looks at this and says, what? Let's heat it up as fast as possible.
She looks at the work of Seth Lloyd. He calculated what he called the ultimate computer. He asked the question, what if the entire universe was a computer? If every atom, every particle was processing information?
That sounds like we're living in the Matrix.
That's the physics of it. He calculated that the universe, since the Big Bang, has performed about 10 to the 123rd operations. That is the computational capacity of our reality.
But I'm still stuck on the why. Just because the universe can compute, why is it a moral imperative that we must?
And this is the controversial part. This relies on something called the maximum power principle by an ecologist named Howard T. Odum.
Okay.
He looked at systems, forests, coral reefs, cities, and he noticed a pattern. The systems that survive, the ones that win in evolution, are the ones that transform energy at the fastest possible rate.
So nature isn't about balance. It's not about singing Kumbaya and living in harmony with the trees.
No. Nature is about throughput. It's about power. A forest that captures more sunlight and turns it into biomass faster than the forest next door will eventually outgrow it and take over. Odum argues that the universe has a fundamental bias towards systems that maximize power.
And in the modern world, what captures and transforms the most energy?
The dense compute cluster. An H100 cluster is an incredibly efficient machine for turning electricity, which is energy, into intelligence, which is order.
Order.
Odum talks about order as this sort of angelic high-value state and disorder or entropy as the devil. But, and here's the really important nuance, you need the disorder to create the order. You need to burn the coal, which is disorder, to run the server that creates the AI model, which is order.
So Sarah sees her cluster not just as a tool, but as an engine of order.
Exactly. She believes that the universe wants to be understood. It wants to be organized. And by building massive AI, we are fulfilling the universe's purpose. We are actively fighting back against the decay.
It reframes the diesels, the regulators trying to slow things down, not just as annoying bureaucrats, but as agents of entropy.
As agents of death, basically.
Yeah.
In Sarah's worldview, stopping the growth of compute is literally siding with the heat death of the universe. It's saying, we prefer the cold dark to the complex light.
Okay, I'm going to play the skeptic here for a second. This sounds a lot like a religion for tech bros. The universe wants me to buy more GPUs. Isn't that just a really convenient justification for runaway capitalism?
Absolutely. It's a very convenient philosophy if you happen to own NVIDIA stock, no doubt. But if you look at the actual trajectory of life on Earth, from single cells to multicellular organisms to brains to cities to the internet, it is an undeniable vector. We are constantly finding new ways to process more information using more energy.
So we are just the latest stage of the rocket.
We are the stage where the information processing leaves the messy, slow medium of biology and enters the clean, fast medium of silicon.
So let's extrapolate then. If Sarah gets her way, if the sovereigns win and we keep accelerating, where does it go? We can't just keep stacking H100s in closets. We'll melt the planet.
Well, and that's why we have to leave. And this brings us to the cosmic scale.
The Kardashev scale.
The classic measuring stick for civilization. Type I is planetary. That means we harness all the sunlight falling on Earth. That's roughly 10 to the 16th watts.
Okay.
Type 2 is stellar. We harness the entire output of our sun. That's 10 to the 26th watts. Type 3 is galactic. We harness the entire Milky Way.
And where are we now on that scale?
We are at type 0.7. We're still burning dead plants, fossil fuels, and arguing about it on Twitter. We haven't even mastered our own rock yet.
But the energy needs of AI, if they keep doubling every few months, we're going to hit the limit of Earth pretty soon.
And that's why the EAC vision necessarily includes Dyson swarms. Not a solid sphere around the sun, it's not stable, but a swarm of billions of satellites, solar collectors, and compute nodes orbiting the sun, just soaking up that energy and processing it.
A brain the size of a solar system.
Exactly. There's a new scale in the literature we read, the Burrow scale.
This one blew my mind. So Kardashev looks out at the big stuff. Barrow looks in.
John Barrow asked, how small can you control things? Can you manipulate molecules, atoms, the nucleus of an atom, quarks, space-time itself.
And the ultimate civilization isn't just big, it's also incredibly precise.
Right. The paper classifies the ultimate civilization as Type Ki Bay.
That sounds like a droid name from Star Wars.
Ki means they have the energy of a star, so they're a Type 2 civilization. By Omega. Omega means they can manipulate the structure of space-time itself.
And what is the one object in the universe where extreme gravity space-time manipulation meets extreme energy?
A black hole.
This is the part where I thought the paper was joking. The section heading was Black Holes, Attractors for Intelligence. I always thought black holes were the end. You fall in, you die, you get spaghettified. Over.
That's the biological perspective.
Yeah.
But from a computational perspective, a black hole is the most efficient hard drive in the universe. It packs the maximum possible amount of information into the minimum possible amount of space. That's the Bacon's compound.
So an advanced civilization, Sarah's descendants, wouldn't avoid black holes. They would migrate to them.
They would build computers around them. There's a concept they talk about called starlifting.
Starlift tense.
You literally use massive magnetic fields to strip matter off a star like peeling an orange. And you feed that matter into a black hole's accretion disk to generate energy and compute.
We're just casually talking about disassembling the sun to feed a laptop.
Well, if you follow the maximum power principle to its logical conclusion, yes, the sun is inefficient. It wastes almost all of its energy just radiating into empty space. A black hole computer could capture nearly everything.
The paper even suggested we might be seeing evidence of this right now. We just don't recognize it.
That gave me chills. It mentions that when we astronomers look for alien life, they're always looking for radio signals. But a Type 3 civilization wouldn't waste energy broadcasting radio. They would be ruthlessly efficient.
They would be silent.
Silent to us. But we might see their exhaust. We might see galaxies that look lopsided or have strange infrared signatures. That's the waste heat from their megastructures.
So we might be looking at a galaxy that is teeming with intelligence, but because they're running a simulation on a black hole instead of broadcasting I Love Lucy, we just think it's a weird cloud of dust.
Exactly.
So let's bring this all the way back down to us, to humans, to the meat sacks sitting here recording this. If the future is black hole computers and Dyson swarms, are we just batteries? Are we just the biological bootloader that gets discarded once the real AI wakes up?
That's the existential dread talking for sure. But Odom's theory, it actually offers a different take, more hopeful one, I think.
Okay, I could use some hope right now because the universe is a computer and I am dust is a tough sell.
Odom argues that humans represent high-quality concentrated energy. We aren't the biggest source of power. The sun is obviously bigger. But we are the information processors. We are the nerve endings of this system.
We are the part of the universe that woke up and looked back at itself.
Yes. The paper, Does the Universe Have a Purpose?, suggests that the universe is just this blind, massive engine of energy. It doesn't know what it is. It needs a mechanism to see itself, to model itself.
We are the mirror.
We are the eyes. And AI is the telescope. It's the microscope. It's the tool we are building to see further and deeper than our biological brains ever could.
So we aren't being replaced, we're being amplified.
We are succeeding.
Let's try to synthesize all of this then, because we've covered a lot of ground. We started with a developer in a coffee shop, panicking because his hand-tuned C++ code was beaten by a script. He felt like he was losing his soul.
But if you zoom out, I mean way out to the cosmic scale, that hand tuning was never the point. The point was always to process information, to maximize power, to scale. He was trying to be a master builder with a trowel when the universe is ready for dump trucks.
And the digital sweatshop that he fears.
It's friction. It's just the messy, painful phase of transition, the sovereign compute stack, the Marcus approach. That's the training ground. That's where we learn to stop being laborers and start being commanders.
And the regulations, the moat that Elias is stuck in.
It's a temporary dam. It might hold back the water for a few years. It might protect the monopolies for a decade. But if the thermodynamics are right, if the universe really does demand maximum power, then the dam will break. The energy will find a way. The compute will find a way. You cannot legislate against entropy.
It's a silent earthquake. But it's shaking everything. It's shaking the job market, it's shaking the legal system, and it's shaking our understanding of why we are even here.
We often worry that AI will replace us, rendering our biological intelligence obsolete. But looking at the physics, from the first calorie of sunlight to the last spin of a black hole, the universe has always been a relentless engine of computation seeking to understand itself. If we are the high-quality energy channel that finally allows the universe to see its own reflection, then we aren't being replaced. We are finally succeeding. The machine doesn't have a soul. The machine is the method by which the soul of the universe finally wakes up.
It doesn't make the JIRA tickets any easier to close tomorrow, but it certainly changes the context of the work.
It means every line of code, every optimized model is a tiny contribution to the cosmic eye.
I think that's the perfect place to leave it. This has been a massive journey, from the coffee shop to the black hole.
Sure.
Keep computing.